Right, welcome back everybody. We're making up some time, so that's good. Right, next item on the agenda, thank you, is the Food and Beverage Logistics Hub. And Chris, I think you'd like to introduce this one initially. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am actually quite excited to be talking to you about one of the first steps we've taken since we really tabled the food and beverage game plan. And so today, coming to talk to you about this is the core team, really, who's in the middle of this. So we have Mark, who's going to give a brief chat, Darren Grant, and we've got Ava as well. So we think this is a fantastic opportunity. We are talking to you about the Economic Development Strategy refresh and our next steps into the next couple of years. But it's really great to be able to say we've got something tangible that we want to get your agreement to support what really is a great opportunity for business in our district. So I will hand over to the team and then we'll be happy to talk to you.
Kia ora tātou, through you, Madam Chair. This is a great opportunity for Kapiti. As you know, we have a very long history of food production. About 180 years we've been supplying food to the region, and we've got something even more special than that. We have one of the most productive and creative artisanal food and beverage sectors in New Zealand. I say that from a point of view of having worked with the food industry for 20 years in my career. This hub is certainly showing all the signs of bringing together the industry that we know is leading this charge, this food and beverage game plan. So they will be looking at canning, bottling, all sorts of services that can be provided in a way that builds scale. And we don't have scale in Kapiti, but we do have a great reputation for working together. So in May, when the Food and Beverage Game Plan became a reality, and that's elected members have received a briefing on it, that was their start. They went straight out of the blocks and they started working together commercially. However, in this current business environment, they are very stretched in terms of resource, and this hub is a way of building economies of scale and minimising the risk to individual businesses. The Bond store is at the head of this hub. They will take on all the risk. They have a 12-year lease on that building to go into these much larger premises, so they are taking on a lot of risk for the benefit of the wider food and beverage cluster. But by council investing alongside them in the fit out of this facility, we can certainly help them become, for their scale, one of the most innovative and productive logistics hubs in the country for their scale. They're on that mission. So we are asking for council's support to use the Better Off funding. And this will be the first of maybe a few other proposals that we'll bring to council under that banner of the Food and Beverage Game Plan. I'm very happy to take questions.
Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, a couple of questions. One is, given the presumed value, like the return on investment here, which looks like it might be considerable, is that 50,000, is that enough?
It's enough in one respect, in that it certainly will seed into their first phase. So it's not a requirement to have the 50,000 to be sustainable or resilient, fortunately. It seeds alongside the industry. It's showing the industry that support from council. You're right, it's not a large amount of money compared to some food hubs that get set up in the millions, but it certainly will get us onto a place where in 6 months' time, when we get their first report, we can really understand what that amount of support delivers, and it may be that more is required.
Okay, and the other one is, what will it be marketed as? Is it like the Kapiti Food and Beverage Cluster?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it's?
Yes.
Because, you know, cluster there's an adjective that follows it. Sometimes it doesn't work too well.
Yes.
So I just wonder.
So
when things don't go well.
Yeah, so there's various names for these hubs. Hub fell out of fashion with central government. For example, you weren't allowed to have anything on your funding application. So these words come and go. Cluster in the literature, in the business literature, is a very established model. We won't use the word cluster for an overarching brand. Our artisanal companies say their brands are sacrosanct. Their brands are the premium brands. So we won't going around branding it. However, there is a lot of interest. This will set the stage for what could one day be a Kapiti food and beverage innovation hub of some description, possibly even a new build. So it's a first step.
Yeah, brilliant.
Councillor Halliday.
Actually, it's a very minor question. Just with the grants that we give out, are they GST inclusive or exclusive?
Exclusive.
Exclusive, okay, so they'll get the full 50 grand. That's me.
Any other questions? Oh, Amy Holbrook.
I'd just like to know, is Hub still out of fashion?
Only with government, central government, because they have funded millions and millions and millions into hubs that haven't always given them what they wanted.
Do they like collective?
They like collective.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? All
Happy to
right.
move, Madam Chair.
Oh. Oh, you
Happy
have
to move, Madam Chair.
All right, so we have a number of recommendations there. I won't read them all out because there's quite a lot of them. Okay, moved by Councillor Halliday, seconded by Mayor Holbrook. Councillor Halliday, would you like to...
This is going to sound a little bit like an election campaign speech, but hey, look, I've got 35 years in hospitality experience. This is an absolute no-brainer to me, and fantastic to see it coming through. Right, so where to start? It's great to see the size of the space with regards to expansion and the openness of the Bond store to take on the scope upper. And I know Chris delivers, which is a big bonus in this space. Very, very supportive. We've got 30% of home-based businesses, and one of the big problems you have in the food and beverage sector is trying to transition potentially from a home-based business or a small business because you need to have a kitchen and that sort of stuff. So if we can create those sorts of spaces that people can hire or use for a small time or anything like that, it's an absolute game changer in my opinion. Having a look at Chris's site, the bottling facility, and the process they went through to get that, I thought was first rate. So as we move forward, I see that the research and the ability to deliver with regards to what's required is definitely there. Which I find very, very exciting. I'll do a little plug with regards to in the report that was attached in the appendices. This has been a primary producer space, and it's fantastic that we've gone down this path. It's a very, very important part of who we are in Kapiti. I do note that part of the concept there is from farm to plate and that sort of stuff. So I'm looking at the next phase sort of really being that tourism aspect of that plate aspect of things. Looking forward to that. That's more my area as such. 12 units, good size, good area, so fully supportive of this, and looking forward to seeing how it develops, and hopefully being a part of seeing how it develops as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Wilson.
I won't reiterate, I'll try and be original.
No wonder you've got a name tag on there, because you keep forgetting things.
Oh, did anyone notice my name tag? It's quite magnificent, isn't it? Oh, you've got one too. Right.
Your memory is...
Yeah, just wanted to say this. This will bring, just that extra energy to Birmingham Street, which is, we're trying to develop this kind of stuff internally, which is fantastic. I'm assuming there will be, again, some synergies with what's happening in the Horowhenua, because they're doing some really successful things in this space as well. And they're only just you get in your car and you're there in no time at all. So again, and Mark and your team, I think this is incredibly positive stuff. It's really hard to put a negative spin on this, even if you really tried, right? So I think it's fantastic. And we're going to get more and more people employed in this space, I think, locally. So Liz is always banging on about making sure we've got jobs for local people and kids and stuff. And this just ticks a whole bunch of boxes for what is really a relatively small cost. So, boom.
Oh, Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will not reiterate what has already been said.
Sure.
I was excited actually by the shift that we're seeing. One of the businesses mentioned in the report coming back to Kapiti, having had to go away previously due to no venue. And so that probably is the most exciting thing about that is the fact that we are bringing new business back into this district through some of this work. So I'd like to congratulate the team on that because I think, and that is part of, I guess, the cluster's work together is enabling that. And I would like us to continue to look at ways that we can increase our commercial premises to increase those number of businesses that want to come back here if they've left or that want to start. And I think this is a key part of that is this hub or whatever name we want to call it. So very supportive and thank you to the team for the work they've put into this space. That's all of the economic development team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Holbrook.
Yeah, thanks very much. And this proposal in front of us is a really wonderful one. I try not to use the word no-brainer, but it is one that's clearly worth supporting, you know, standout kind of proposal. I'm just wondering if we're doing these one-off grants, though, with proposals that are potentially maybe worth supporting, are we proposing any kind of process that we might go through to make decisions in a more considered way where we need to do that? And also, I was just looking at paragraph 26 about the grant agreement and reporting back, and just wanting a little bit more information about whether it's okay that staff just sign off that grant agreement, whether we need to see it, and how that reporting back happens.
Mayor Holbrook, we are in debate now.
That's
so your questions are rhetorical, I'm assuming, at this point?
Oh,
so.
I can ask questions, add questions at any point. Yeah. Sorry, I got a bit out of order, but I just thought it was just on the back of some of the debate that's happened.
Yes.
I think it's worth getting an
Chris,
answer.
do you want to respond? Yeah.
I think perhaps the easy response to you, Mayor Jenna, is that good points, and I think maybe what we can do is come back on those points. So I think this is the first cab off the rank. We wanted to come through and say, hey, some quick wins, some low-hanging fruit, for want of better words. But I think you're right. We can come back to you and say, going forward, this is going to be really the start of a process, we think, of how we might start to implement some of the game plans that we do put in place. And we will have to go through a process. And I think what we want to transparently do with you is make sure that we are being transparent about the prioritisation and opportunity that's on the table, and that you have the chance to have input to that. The Economic Development Kotahitanga Board obviously is across this, and that is in the report. And it could be that as we get going and we're looking at our economic development strategy refresh, that we actually establish in there how this would work going forward. That would be my proposal.
Yeah, thanks. And apologies to the chair for asking my question out of order.
Is there any other discussion? I would like to say a few words, if that's all right. I just want to go, woohoo! Sorry. Because, as you know, economic development is my thing, and this has been a long time in the making. There's a whole lot of stuff that's gone on behind the scenes to get to this point, and this is a huge success story for the EDT and for the EDKB. And I think we need to tell the world about that, because, you know, we so often get criticised for, you know, what are we, you know, where are the runs on the board in economic development? Why are we wanting to put money into economic development? We're not getting anything to show for it. And I think this is proof that things are changing. You know, we've got a really good ED team now. The EDKB is, you know, really getting some quite significant things underway, which are yet to come to this table, yet to be seen in public. And I think, you know, we are really gaining a head of steam in economic development, and that is absolutely fantastic as far as I'm concerned. That's why I'm sitting at this table, primarily because I wanted to see things happen in economic development, and it's just fantastic news. So I just want to throw that in, and then I'll hand back to Councillor Halliday for the right of reply. Thank you.
Building on that, I guess, just reminds me that it was about nine and a half years ago that I came into this room when I owned a cafe down at the beach, asking about a tourism strategy, and to be told we didn't have one, and when there was one going to be there, and I told that wasn't. So a bit like Liz, one of the reasons I'm at this table is because of that. And for me, it's been a long time coming, but things had to be put in place to get us to this position. And we're starting to see the fruits of those labours. There's been a lot of graft, as you'd appreciate, Liz, that's got us to this point. And I just want to take this moment to thank all the ED team, all the staff that are here. Eva, yourself, with regards to relationships you're building out in the industry, especially in the sustainability area. But just generally, it's starting to bring that industry together. And we're starting to actually start. And the great thing is that it's not like we're like Martinborough or anyone like that. Yes, okay, they're down their areas. We're at the start of our journey, and I think that's exciting. And I think that there's a lot of scope for a lot of development and change and opportunity on the Kapiti coast to be a leader and a brand leader in this space. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this progresses, the other things that are going to come to the table, but the fact that this is on the table, and another aspect to this is the fact that Chris has stepped up, and is willing to take on more risk, shall we say, with regards to allowing the wider community to be able to to grow as well, and I take my hat off to him. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But he would have only done that if he thought he had the support of the council. I dare say, and we had the cluster there, which hasn't necessarily been there in the past. So it's great to see our community and the sector responding to that. I think this is only the beginning of that, and I look forward to see where that all goes. But very exciting times.
Thank you. So I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Well done. Right, now we'll move on to the Older Persons Housing Stage 1 report. So who's speaking to this one?
Yeah. What's that? Yeah, that's fine. That's great.
All right.
Do you want to say?
Yeah.
Kia ora. So we're heading into, I'm going to say just more broadly, the older person's housing space. So I just wanted to note that we are going to be presenting on an item around the review of the older person's housing, and straight after us is the asset management plan, housing for older persons. And there is good connection between those things, which is why I just wanted to start that off. Mike's going to pop in for the second item and step us through the asset management plan. As per the previous item, I think I want to say to you, this is a piece of work that has also been sort of rumbling underground, if you like, and is now popping sort of up in a first stage discussion. It's a really important part of our housing strategy. And so we do have some really big and ambitious strategies in place, and we're really starting to see the fruit of the mahi that has come before. So this is the start of a conversation. I do want to say to you that I was just chatting to Kevin, who's down the back, listening into this around the Older Persons Council and the age-friendly reference group. That there's an intention that we will be engaging in groups as we go through this process, yes. And I've also emailed you to let you know that we are making sure that we are linking into the tenants who are in our older persons housing, so that they are kept in the loop right the way through the discussion we're having. So we're actually going to be delivering letters today and tomorrow, but we're talking to you first, and we're making sure that we're available to chat to people. So I just wanted to cover those off, and then I'll hand over to Stephen.
Good afternoon. Good morning. So this paper asks you to receive the Stage 1 report, which is part of the review of older persons housing. It asks you to note the key findings in the report, and to note as well that findings in this report will be picked up and examined as part of the Stage 2 report, which will look at the potential future state of the older persons housing portfolio. This report is focused on the current operation, policy settings, and so forth. So I take it as read. And we do also have notes of the questions that came up during the asset management plan last meeting as well.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, just given the election result on the weekend, is there any anticipation of central government policy changes that will impact where you're at, or was that anticipated?
I'm just going to mention around that, likely, but too early to say. So I think as the incoming government's 100-day plan starts to become a bit more substantive, we'll be looking very keenly to see the timing of some of the things that we're coming through. Needless to say, there's a super strong focus on housing, and so we are going to make sure that we're right in the middle of understanding what is coming up and where the opportunities are. And I think it would be fair to say that we already have quite good relationships in central government with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development and Kāinga Ora, who are part of our place-based steering group in Kapiti, working to look across the district. So we're trying to get a lot more synergy in what's happening than perhaps some of you would say ever before.
Councillor Halliday?
Oh,
You've got more questions? Sorry.
Sorry, just to follow up from that, they given that there's one of the housing policies looks like it was ripped out of a page from Dickens, that they're going to reintroduce the no cause, the ending of tenancies, where a tenant that it's not required to give them any cause at all, other than the fact that you just want them out, presumably so you can increase the rent. I'm working on an assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we won't be going down that track, because it's immoral and it's an appalling piece of legislative change, which it looks like it's on its way for sure. But yeah, I would be really disturbed if we were to embrace such a thing.
I think, any changes to the Residential Tenancies Act, which would be what's proposed, would have an impact on how you could run the portfolio. But I do think that security of tenure is one of the primal considerations around provision of housing for older people.
Thank you. Councillor Halliday?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Look, fantastic, this is coming through. This is stage one. First question is, I'm assuming there'll be following up workshops, briefings around stage two, where we can really dig into this sort of stuff. Fantastic. My next question then would be great. I'd appreciate, perhaps more to you, Mr. DeHaast, with regards to a little bit more of a breakdown of the profit and loss in this space. Just me personally, maybe that could come back to our Social Sustainability Committee as such. I'd be quite keen to delve into that a little bit more before we start getting into those conversations. It may come through the long-term plan process, but something a bit more specific to this would be appreciated. Don't expect it.
Just a note that the phase one findings is more sharing what's come through that review. Phase two is getting a lot more into options.
Yes.
In response to that, and as part of that, we'd be expecting to come back with a more I will say comprehensive / complete view of the opportunity, which you don't have in front of you at the moment.
Yep. No, that's all good. Just a clarifying question, actually. Number 21 on page 32 talks to Te Urana Whakakainga. Is that the name of the group based out of Otaki? That's the Te Whakaminanga in June. What came to the table at Te Whakaminanga was the group that's been put together up in Otaki by Nahapu and others dealing with the ministries and all that sort of scenario. It was called the Kapiti Housing Collective, I think, at the time or something. And they were going to say that they're going to be bringing through a new name for it. I was just curious whether that was the name for that group.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Cool. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. There's other stuff I can pick up when we're doing the workshops. But I did have one question with regards to, it's in the appendices, but I note that we've got a tenant liaison officer for 25 hours a month. Is that on top of a full-time person that oversees the operation of this space? Lovely. That's me. Thank you very much.
Councillor Pavanov.
Thank you. Through the chair, 2 excellent reports. Very, very good. Thank you. So, just a question. So, are you taking questions for both reports now, or would you like to do it separately?
No, separately, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in appendix, in the appendices on page 114, it lists the portfolio financial performance. One of those columns there shows the depreciation and interest, and from 2021 it goes from 400,000 to projected to be in 2025 to over $1 million. Is there any particular, reason why that amount is going up? And I suppose it's about the financial sustainability of this model, and also too, there's conversations about increasing our portfolio. So how, is that potentially likely to go up even more?
Thanks, Councillor. And I'll get Mark to chip in as appropriate. But our assets are constantly revalued, and that is the major driver of depreciation. These assets have improved as we have invested in things like healthy homes and that and prevailing market conditions, because revaluations are based on what it currently costs to actually maintain and improve the assets. So that's the main driver behind depreciation. We're finding that across all of our asset classes, but housing, as you know, is intrinsically linked to what's happening in that sector, which is the driver behind the increase in depreciation.
So thank you for that. So in terms of the value of these properties, that's not linked to the 3-yearly QV that everyone has, or is there another process that actually values these properties?
I'll ask Mark to answer. There's a whole industry around valuation of assets.
So thank you. So just to answer the question, no, the 3-yearly district-wide revaluation is done by the Valuer General. So that's for all the properties across the district, and that impacts the capital value. So it's your land value plus your improvement value. The council-owned properties, the revaluation that Mike was referring to as council assets are revalued. That's one of our accounting policies, and we do that, and that's based on the total cost of replacement. And then, as Mike has said, what we're seeing is those costs of replacement are going up 30-35%, and then that new cost is then depreciated over the remaining useful life of the assets, which gets shorter with every year we advance. So you've got a greater amount being spread across a smaller period, which drives up depreciation. So they are two separate things. Council revaluations are very different to the district-wide revaluations.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Spires.
Thank you. Chris, you did mention around communicating with or engaging with Kāinga Ora. Now, I do know that Kāinga Ora helped to fund first home buyers into their first homes, and it needs to be repaid in 15 years, but you worry about that in 15 years' time. So I'm just wondering, for new builds, and I do know there is land, especially in Oakley Court, where new pension houses could be built. So are you talking finances to Kāinga Ora as well, as to help fund some new builds for older people's housing?
I think the Phase 2 report will look closely at all the opportunities for funding. I think there's been some ideas about rent-to-buy schemes, I assume to look at picking up on that kind of funding. rent to buy wouldn't normally be something that you'd want to put together for an older person's housing portfolio. It doesn't really target that group.
I'm just going to note, I think Kainga Ora is one opportunity, and this is where, in the second phase of our discussion, some of the things that we have previously been talking to you about, such as the affordable housing entity, the question is, who else can we partner with, and how do we make sure that we are focused on our district and the needs of our district? So definitely focused on central government and how they can contribute to this. We're also looking at what setups we can put in place to make sure that we make the most of that. Currently, I think there's more limited opportunities for councils to lean into some of those funds, and so that's a lot of the work and thinking that we are coming back to you with, and you can expect us to talk to you about in the second phase of work. But a very good point.
Yeah, because my concern is, I guess, that I don't know that there's any pensioner houses that are really accessible for people with disabilities, and that's where I was looking for new builds, really. So yeah, that's where I was coming from.
I think this links to the conversation we have been having around the affordable housing entity and the fact that council isn't eligible for some subsidies. And a big thing that the report shows is the difference between what we charge in terms of rent and market rent. And that subsidy is crucial to bridge that gap. But it does mean a change in the model, which obviously has other things that need to be considered as well.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Halliday.
Yeah, appreciate you. I didn't mean to ask a second question. I did forget one. I wasn't really sure to bring this into debate or a question, but just a concern I have at 16.5 on page 30. At 16.5.2 and 16.5.3, they sort of, the tone here, I guess, is leaning towards missed opportunity with regards to income. In other words, stating that the current tenancies are $123 less per week than what we get on the open market, which means we're foregoing X amount of rent. And I wanted to point out that at the last long-term plan, we actually increased the rent, which increased the turnover of those units by about $400,000. It was relevant to the market then, and we've just had really quite an out-of-control market, if you like, since then. And I would be concerned if the reporting aspect was sort of leaning towards, well, we should be putting up the rents, or we need to be trying to meet the current market, because I think the current market's just really not a good example, even if it is a fact that, that the prices are what they are. But this is really a social aspect rather than market driven.
I think that leans into the last conversation about us being able to get access to subsidies, because I think that the bridging of the gap and the missed opportunity is more in the subsidy than it is in us suggesting that we, I'm being blunt, sitting here going, hike the rental. That's not the position that I think the report was going into. It was more, there's an opportunity for us to maybe not carry effectively the loss that we might be in the current setup. So it was more from that perspective, I think, the report was focused.
Yep. Look, that's fair enough. One of the reasons we did put the rent up at that stage was because then we could get the accommodation supplement could be factored in, and we helped tenants get that, which was part of that. And I guess that would be a different conversation if we're looking for further subsidy, which would be the CLT conversation and phase 2 as such. But no, thank you for that.
I think it is important to note that the work that the team did in terms of working with MSD to make sure that the tenants were able to get that subsidy, and to make sure that the impact of that rise was mitigated.
Yeah, that was actually part of the conditions of it going up.
Right, no more questions. We have a couple of recommendations here that we receive. The KCDC review of older persons housing stage 1 report, appendix 1, and we note the findings of the review of that report with a separate report on findings from stage 2 of the review to be presented in December 2023, including discussions on considerations for the long-term plan if applicable. Do I have a move of that? Councillor Halliday, seconded. Councillor Kirby. Councillor Halliday, right of introduction. Yep,
look, fantastic piece of work. Thank you very much, Dean. This is us stepping into the housing space in the last triennium, and we're now getting closer to the rock face, and this is going to be informing how we move forward in this space. I note, I think the average coverage on the ground is only about 20-odd percent, 25% across the property portfolio, so there's opportunity there. But the simple fact of the matter is we've got an ageing population, and we need to be making we need to be assisting in ensuring provisions are made in this space. I do think there's conversations to potentially be had around even, elderly people flatting. I think we've got a lot of large houses in the area where people can't downsize out of, yet they maybe have 2 or 3 rooms spare, and there's maybe some opportunities there to facilitate a situation there. But the fact of the matter is, we're having these conversations, we're moving along, and I look forward to the next stage. Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Oh, Councillor Kirby.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next stage and what that informs in terms of our affordable housing entity, because I think that is a priority piece of work that we need to get finalised and across the line so that we can mobilise as much as we can in terms of support and facilitation of housing for our community. So thanks team for the work, that's great.
Any other comments? I'd like to just throw in a couple of comments based on the work that I've done with retirees over the last 23, 24 years. I just want to stress how absolutely critical provision of housing for older people is. In my estimation, something like 30 to 40% of retirees are either renting or have a mortgage. And as we know, NZ Super does not cover rent or a mortgage. And there's the numbers are escalating of people in that situation. We're looking at extreme poverty and increasing poverty amongst our older communities. So, but it's a complex area, involves central government as well as local and a whole lot of other, agencies, charitable organisations as well, working together to solve this problem. But it's one that definitely needs to be fixed. So I think it's a very, very important piece of work for the welfare of our community. That's all I'd like to say at this point. So I'll now, if there's no further discussion, put that to the vote. All those in favour? Right. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. And now we move on to the asset management plan, housing for older persons. Mike, you're introducing that one?
Thanks, Madam Chair. We did brief the Social Sustainability Committee earlier in the month and had a long and detailed discussion involving some of the staff down the back there. As you've heard from the team, from Chris and her team, there's some big strategic work happening in this area. But in the meantime, we need to look after our existing assets. So no matter what happens, we still need to be looking after our existing assets and tenants. So what we try to do here is to recognise that there's some big stuff happening, but in the meantime, making sure that we're tickety-boo with respect to our existing assets for no matter what happens in the future. By and large, given their age, our assets are in pretty good nick and are well looked after by the team at the back. But as you know, and as is identified in the plan, there are some shortcomings with them given their age and their design and accessibility challenges in particular. That's all I really wanted to say. Happy to take any questions, Madam Chair.
Right. Any questions? No questions? Yeah, we have traversed it pretty well. Oh, Councillor Pranoff.
Thank you again for a very good report. It talks about customers here, and I'm not sure whether it would have been better to ask this question previously, but so I know that the demand for these properties doesn't meet the supply. Is there any data on how, once a person actually gets into one of these properties, how long they stay there for?
Yes. Lynn or Claire, have you got that data at your fingertips? Maybe we can come back to you on that.
Yeah, I think it would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll have a...
Happy to move, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we're moving that the asset management plan, that we note the asset management plan for older housing. Note the asset management plan, housing for older persons, at enclosure 1, approve in principle the asset management plan as the basis for long-term planning, and funding options will be presented as part of the long-term plan 2024. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Spires, right of introduction.
Certainly. It was great to see this come through the Social Sustainability Committee. We had a good, robust conversation in that space, which to me, being the workhorse committees, I think it was really appropriate to have that then. And I just wanted to reiterate some key points there, which was the housing as a home versus being a tenancy, the access issues, and also noting the hazards to the area as well, the land hazards which we'll need to contend with. Also the demand, but also the unseen demand, which I think Liz alluded to as well. And also something Kim noted as well, which is that there is no actual retirement villages in Otaki as well. So that's a growing area as such. I actually wrote it down here. I just want to reiterate that, look, this is a proactive and responsible approach which we put in place now. And I think it's something that, in my opinion, has been a bit lacking in the past. We need to know assets to protect assets, and the development of this asset plan will be there to ensure their longevity. I've known someone that's recently moved into one of these flats after it's just been refurnished. I was actually quite surprised, having been and seen them beforehand, the quality and the space, actually. It's amazing how the walls haven't changed. It's just the layout has changed and the difference that makes with regards to the ability for enjoyment of life in those spaces. And I know it's actually very appreciated by the people that have moved in, and I'm sure very appreciated by the people that have been there for a while and have gone through those upgrades. A positive aspect with regards to where we can go with this in the future is the fact that the land coverage, as I mentioned before, is quite small in relation to building coverage. So there's a lot of leeway there to look at ways that we can enhance the portfolio that we have, and it'll be interesting going through that process, which sounds like it's getting closer and closer, which is fantastic. Also noting the growth in Otaki, there's high demand in Paraparaumu at the moment with regards to the older housing, but with that growth that we're having in Otaki, that demand's just going to be coming more and more and more online. And I also wanted to acknowledge that Papakāinga is also now in the district plan as well. So we also need to be looking or just investigating or working with our mana whenua partners with regards to kamatua provision and how that's looking there as well and how we tie that all together. But big shout out to the staff, the team that you've got over there. The relationships you're building with the tenants is fantastic. The processes that they go through, it's a challenging space because you'd love to give everyone a house now, and I realise how stressful that must be when you can't help those people that you really do want to help. But the job you do is much appreciated. I just want to thank you all for that because it's one of those roles that's way, way down here someplace, but it's critically important with regards to our older person space as such. So the respect that's given in those areas and how we look after our tenants in those areas is much appreciated. And I just wanted to voice that. So that's me, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion? No? Oh, hang on. You can. Sorry.
And I'll come off.
Martin Turner, you're off your microphone. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not to reiterate what Martin was saying, but just to...
It's the word of the day, I think, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Just to note what he said was about the fact that there is no retirement villages in Otaki. While that's a commercial decision for the retirement village operators, it would be fantastic if the council could facilitate or make it easier for a retirement village operator to come once there is the market demand there. Because at the moment, having talked to Ngā Hapa Otaki and various people in Otaki, when people can't handle their house size, their section size, they have to actually end up moving away because they have to go to live-in or to Waikanae, and as expanded many, many times, there's transport issues in trying to see those people, so they end up being quite isolated. There's also no real co-housing options or options for different housing sizes, so people pre-retirement village can actually move into a different size of, and that's why the community board's actually been supporting some of the developments around the place, which are going to provide other options, which is fantastic. And the Papakāinga stuff as well will be fantastic for the local kaumatua and those multi-generational families that can stick together rather than having to see some of them go to live-in or some to Waikanae and then they just sort of generally disappear from life.
Very good point. I would imagine some of that will come out in our the stage 2 report.
Yep.
Yep. Right, any other discussion? No? Otherwise, shall put that to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Oh, we're making up good our time pretty well, aren't we? So now we just move on to the confirmation of the minutes. I guess we can take those as read. Do I have a mover? Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Kirby. Any discussion of the minutes? I shall put that to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Well done, everybody. So I should now like to ask Mayor Holbrook for a closing karakia. Thank you.
Ka whakaerea te tapu kia wātea ai te ara, kia tūru ki whakataha ai, kia tūru ki whakataha ai. Hui e tai ki e.
Thank you. Now, I believe we have a briefing. Are we going to do that straight away, I presume? No point, hang on.